Friends of sociopaths. When did you realize your friend wasn't okay? Story 1. I remember from a very early age that my mom would just stand in the entrance to my room with a knife. This didn't happen very often, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. When I was 9, I finally asked her why she would do this. I'll never forget how she said this. She looked me dead in the eyes and said that I was a mistake, and she was deciding if she should do what she should have done a long time ago. I asked to move in with my grandma a week later. Thinking about how she said it still gets my heart racing 22 years later. I don't know if I can accurately describe it, but every single hair on my body stood straight up. I was paralyzed with fear, and I felt like if I moved too suddenly, she would strike. Story 2. I've been friends with a sociopath for a long time. He is honestly like my brother. We have developed this relationship that basically treats me like his moral compass, but it doesn't always work. He is still manipulative and cruel at times, and he does only truly care about himself. But he tries to be a good person because he doesn't want to be a jerk. This being said, my most uncomfortable moment with him would have to be when he was telling me about watching some guy almost passed away. He was telling me how he knew he should have stopped watching and helped him, but he was too interested in what the outcome would be if he didn't help. It was creepy to know that, as hard as he may try to be a decent person, sometimes he still can't help himself. Story 3. I dated someone who I now believe is a sociopath. The most uncomfortable thing while we were dating was that he would constantly whisper things in my ear in public, in earshot of other people, like, "Do you think I look hot right now?" Or, "Do you think I'm cool?" And the first few times I thought he was joking, so I laughed, and he'd get angry. He wanted a serious answer. He wanted me to tell him how much I wanted to jump his bones right there in front of all of our friends while they were watching and listening. I'd get lectured afterwards, like, you really insulted me personally when you laughed at me in front of everyone. He could also cry on cue to get what he wanted, and as soon as he got what he wanted, it would instantly switch off, and he'd turn very serious and tell me what a horrible person I was. The instant emotional switches are disarming. When he broke up with me, I went from being his favorite person in the world to instantly at the very bottom of his crap list. He laughed when I cried on multiple occasions, calling me ridiculous. What's very alarming about people like him is how many people they can get on their side with their charm. None of his current friends know anything about his behavior behind closed doors, and they're all new people. All the people who caught on when we were dating are gone from his life. He has convinced his new friends that I'm a psychopath because I tried to tell others what happened, so whenever I say anything about what a creep he is, I get brigaded by the new people who are now being manipulated. Also, he is completely dead in the face and eyes until you interact with him, and then it's like he becomes animated. Story 4. My uncle. We found out things in bits and pieces. My dad and he worked together. He got my dad fired by saying all sorts of lies to their boss, and then pretended to be the white knight by offering him a job in another country where he's living. Money was tight back then, and we were in a lot of debt, so dad agreed. He took him there, gave him work, but also made him a slave to his wife and kids, who also lived there. Dad was expected to cook food, wash the dishes, clean up the dining table after Uncle's family ate, and then eat himself. Yeesh. Dad didn't tell us until much later. According to the rules set by Uncle, he wasn't to contact us often, should mind his own damn business, even if his daughter didn't turn up home all night and keep his mouth shut about work. Dad was miserable there, and we couldn't do much because, again, that job was a welcome relief to us. Uncle, meanwhile, would come every night to our home, have breakfast and dinner that my mom generously cooked because his family was abroad, while crying about my dad in front of us. One day I had finally reached my breaking point, and I started crying because I felt horrible for Dad, who was trying so hard to make things right for us. Uncle just sat opposite to me smiling. God damn smiling. We'll never forget that psycho grin on his face. Days later, Dad suddenly turned up unannounced at home. Turns out he'd been dumped by Uncle in our city without prior notice. Dad had no guts to tell us what happened. Story 5. I was making some brownies. My sister was visiting for some reason. Maybe it was Christmas. Anyway, I like my brownies gooey and hot, so I'm cutting into them a little earlier than I should. Sister flips the F out and starts beating on me, grabbing heavier and more dangerous weapons from whatever she can reach, pans, rolling pins, etc. Becomes a scuffle where she keeps screaming, "Stop hitting me!" while all I'm doing is grabbing her wrists to avoid taking one to the head. Maybe it's not the most uncomfortable she's made me or the most evil thing she's done. And she's done worse to people we aren't related to, I know. But when people ask, "Why is your sister so crazy?" That's the memory that comes into my head. Her gigantic freakout over brownies that I was making. Story 6. Have a friend who's a pathological liar. He's also mostly Scottish in heritage, northern Scotland, where the Viking influence is. He's 6'8", 350 pounds. When he's watching his weight, 400 plus when he isn't, and there is a lot of muscle to go with everything else. The lies aren't all that awful most of the time. He's known as a very entertaining storyteller, and everyone knows he'll embellish greatly from time to time. But he can't keep a girlfriend. Apparently, he can't be honest, is a pathological cheater. The lies catch up with his relationships in a few weeks at most. One day we were in a taxi together, and he got the idea that the driver was taking a route that was unnecessarily long. He stopped the cheerful story he was telling me mid-sentence. His face changed, and he barked at the cab driver in a voice I'd never heard. Loud and angry and aggressive. The cab driver immediately pulled over and let us out without paying. And a good thing, too. I think my friend was about to end him. I was petrified in my seat. I felt like he might end everyone in range. I was terrified. It was the last time I spent time with him, though I'd known him for 20 years. I later learned that he won't associate with someone after they've seen him snap, as one of his other ex-friends put it. Story 7. I'm an ex-friend of a sociopath. I think it was when we were hanging out and we started arguing about me going to his house. I had left my wallet there and I told him this and told him we needed to go back so I could get it. He then started claiming that his parents didn't like me and didn't want me at his house. He said since they weren't home, that would just make it worse. I just kept saying I need my damn wallet and that he could get it for me. He proceeded to call me selfish and a monster for arguing with him, like he yelled it in my face in a public area. I was shocked and had nothing to say. Then he proceeded to act like nothing happened, asking me if we should get food, etc. I eventually got my wallet back from him. He didn't spend any money on me or anything, but needless to say, we aren't friends anymore. Honestly, I didn't even consider him a sociopath until telling my therapist about how he manipulated me into thinking everything was my fault and how me being better mentally was never enough. She basically told me straight up he's a sociopath, and it clicked. He used me just to fill his ego. Story 8. My sister feels nothing but rage. When she doesn't feel rage, she feels literally nothing. She spends her life manipulating everyone around her and satisfying that rage. She mercilessly abused me growing up. She tried to assassinate me 3 times before I moved out. No one believed me. Because I was older and larger, I was always considered to be the aggressor, even when I was being violently assaulted in my sleep. Living with her was a nightmare. The most uncomfortable moment between us wasn't something she did. It was something I considered doing to her. I'd been sent up to the crawl space to get an ornament. You could only access it from a ladder in the garage. When I grabbed it and turned around, she was at the top of the ladder, staring at me. There wasn't any room for her to come up. She was just waiting there, staring. She told me to get out of the way, and I told her I couldn't. There wasn't room for 2 people in the crawl space. She'd have to go back down the ladder. She immediately switched to rage. She said she hated me, and she wasn't going to let me down from the crawl space. It was 110 degrees there, and I was already exhausted. I remember thinking, she's at the top of a ladder, over a cement floor. I could make this stop. I'd just say it was an accident. I'm only 12. No one would convict me. As soon as I thought that, her face suddenly went blank, and she went back down the ladder. Story 9. I dated one a bit over a decade ago. He fits the description of a sociopath more than a psychopath, but he's also narcissistic. We dated in high school for a little over a year. Aside from the constant gaslighting, lies, manipulation, and threats, he was basically a crappy person who warped my mind so much that I actually believed I'd be nothing without him. Whether driving erratically with me in the car when I questioned him or threatening physical violence on me and my family if I broke up with him, he was truly terrifying by the end of our relationship. The absolutely most uncomfortable or terrifying moment was when he put a loaded hunting rifle in my face. He was addicted to grass. I don't believe grass is a dangerous drug at all, but he was so psychologically warped that he believed he was going through severe physical and mental withdrawals if he went a day or two without smoking. One night he decided he was going to rob a small convenience store in his town for grass money. I stepped in front of his door to block his path, and he pointed the gun at me. I bravely broke up with him a few days later, blocked him on social media, wouldn't answer his calls, and wouldn't answer the door when he showed up to my parents' house. It took months for him to get the point that I was serious. 12 years later, and I still have nightmares of him. Story 10. In high school and college, I knew a guy who kept file folders with information about people he knew, actual file folders labeled with their names. He would take notes on people he knew, what he thought of as their personality traits, their strengths that he might have to overcome, their weaknesses that he felt could exploit. These notes, along with his detailed analysis journals, because seriously, he analyzed everyone he knew, would go into his folders. I only saw these folders a single time, but I saw his note taking almost every time I was around him. He didn't try to hide it. Story 11. My brother is a psychopath. I could tell you so many stories about him. Hell, you could make it into a movie. He's an incredible con artist and somehow has never been thrown in jail despite having committed fraud multiple times and stolen tens, if not hundreds, of thousands of dollars. My mother has NPD, which is in a similar class of disorders, and she is far more dangerous than my brother. That said, my brother would probably sell his only child if he got enough money for it. I just don't think he'd be capable of ending anyone. Story 12. A couple I know were having marital difficulties and were thinking of divorcing. It wasn't a done deal by any means, so they were both invited to this party. Most of the people in the party know the wife better and the husband only slightly. He turns up, she does not. He goes to the host and asks if he can have a couple of minutes to announce something to everybody. Sure, says the host, no problem, go ahead. He proceeds to get everybody's attention and publicly trash his wife, accusing her of infidelity and whatnot. The host throws him out of the party. He goes peacefully because he's now done what he came to do. Story 13. There was a girl in our crowd, Shannon, who was constantly doing highly inappropriate things and sleeping with everyone's boyfriends. Whenever she was confronted, she'd blatantly manipulate her way out of it and could make herself cry on command. Eventually, the crowd dissipated, but she continued to hang out with me. Aside from her annoyance, it was fine, until one day she called me saying, I did something. Can I come over? I said, sure. She sheepishly walked through the door and wouldn't look at me directly. I said, what did you do? She said, please don't be mad at me. I slept with Chad. Chad was my recent ex. He was my first serious relationship or high school sweetheart. We dated for 5 years, moved out and got our first apartment together. I was his first everything. We were engaged for 3 of those years and broke up 6 months before our wedding date. I'm typically not one to get hung up over exes, but she slept with him in the same month that we would have been scheduled to get married. And to make matters worse, after telling me, she asked if I was mad. I told her I'm not, but I'm disappointed. She said that, thank God, because, let me tell you. And she sat there and gave me an excited play-by-play of their evening together, telling me that she couldn't wait to do it again. After she left, I sent her a text telling me to not contact me again, and then I blocked her on everything. Story 14. Lots of uncomfortable moments, but a couple that stand out. He had extremely violent dreams and would tell me them in great detail. He also would say things like, I could take advantage of you whenever I wanted and no one would believe you. And he showed me where he kept the gun he would use to end me if I ever betrayed him. And he pinned me down one night while I screamed in fear and his parents were upstairs above us. ignoring the whole thing. Months later, his mom told me they knew what kind of person he was, and they were scared too, but thought I was the only good influence who might be able to change him. It's been a decade, and even writing this down makes me feel nervous that he could read it and find me. I almost made a throwaway, but he shouldn't still have that much power to make me afraid, right? The night I left, he called me hundreds of times, literally hundreds, filled my voicemail inbox with all kinds of threats. But then the next message would be an apology and begging me to come back. It was unnerving how fast his mood was changing back and forth. I drove to stay with a friend in a different city that night because I was too afraid to go home. Story 15. This is a moment I still think about from time to time, though it's nowhere near as bad as some others in this thread. When I was a kid, this girl had hit me, kicked me, randomly lied to get me in trouble, and tried to shut me in rooms to keep me from getting help when she attacked me on numerous occasions. But none of that really scared me after a while. Yes, she was aggressive, but I was about the same size, so I could fight back. But there was this one time. We were getting along fine that day. She was being pleasant and fun. We were playing games together. It was a good day. She'd told me earlier that she'd been sharpening sticks to a point when she was bored, which for some reason didn't set off any alarms in my kid brain. After a while, we ended up playing with some of these sticks. Can't remember what we were doing. I think we were just using them to draw and dig a little in the dirt. Time passed. Everything was fine. Two normal kids. Then she looked over at me and something was just different. I don't know what it was, but something felt very wrong and suddenly I was afraid. The second she started moving towards me, I got up and ran. She chased me with her sharpened stick, and I'm 100% confident she was going to stab me with it. Now it was still a stick. Looking back, she probably couldn't have done serious damage with it, but it was entirely possible she could have given me some nasty cuts, and no doubt she'd have done it if she caught me. While she'd never gone after me with a weapon before that day, she had hurt other people with scissors in the past. In the end, her parents stopped her, and her aggression had just sort of turned off, like a switch back to regular kid. I think that's the part that really bothered me. The way she went from being totally normal to the scariest she'd ever been, and then back. Just like that. Story 16. I dated a girl senior year of high school who was schizophrenic. She was great. I think about her a lot still. Anyways, when she went on birth control, she had to have her meds adjusted, and they were not right for about 2 months. I mean, she would break down and cry mid conversation, tell me she can't feel anything, just all around cloudy. It was heartbreaking. I was pouring all of my time into her because she deserved the love, and I began spending the night regularly. This night, everything was fine, no strange occurrences. We cuddle up and go to sleep. I woke up around 1 a.m., and she wasn't in bed. I figured she had gone to the bathroom and rolled over. I heard the door open and looked back, and she was walking at me with a knife in her hand, held up like a horror movie. I quickly realized she was sleepwalking and remembered you aren't supposed to wake someone who is schizophrenic while they are sleepwalking because it can go very badly. I don't know if this is true, I just saw it in a movie. So I just slinked out of the bed and left. The next morning, I told her my dad had called and I had to leave. I never told her about it because I thought she'd be embarrassed. I hope she is well. Story 17. I don't know if he necessarily qualifies as a psychopath exactly, but an old roommate of mine was always willing to escalate any argument eventually to being willing to murder me. It would be a somewhat gradual transition, but inevitably we'd get to, well, then I have no reason not to devote my life to just murdering you since it would have been ruined anyway. He has meds that sort of keep him in the middle of things, and his opinion at the time was that meds were for the workday and he didn't keep up his dose in the evening or on weekends. That said, even when he's on his meds, it is his firm belief that if you don't have a plan to end anyone you spend time with, you are opening yourself up to weakness. When I had enough, I approached him with another of the roommates and said, look, it's your choice to be off your meds when you want, but your behavior is unacceptable. We'd like you to either find another apartment or stay at home. He decided to stay on his meds, and I think overall it helped him. Story 18. I attract those kinds of people all the time because deep inside, I want to help people or fix their problems. I remember my first ever time meeting a sociopath was when I was around 8. There was a girl in my class who quickly became friends with me. I was a tomboy and had trouble making friends with most girls at that age, and we formed a close friendship. She would encourage me to stay out and not tell my family I was walking to her house first, even though mine was on the way. I always got in trouble because of her, and I didn't realize it. Our friendship came to an end when she stole all the money in mine and my brother's piggy bank. My parents went to her house and got the money back. Her mother couldn't believe it at first, until they found the money. I don't know how much truth was in her story, but she blamed it on her little brother, and she told me they found the money under his mattress. After that, I also realized she stole heaps of my stationery and stole some of my lunch money. At the time, I thought I was just being careless and losing stuff. Story 19. I was best friends with a diagnosed sociopath with manic tendencies for about 5 years. Two moments immediately come to mind. Sitting at a friend's house, hanging out with about 7 of our other close friends. We've all known each other for years and have gone through just about everything you can think of together. Despite this, I've never seen this specific friend show any type of true emotion. While the two of us are having a smoke that night, without any warning, he turns to me with tears in his eyes and blankly says, "They upped my meds again, but nothing's working. The paranoia is so loud. All I can think about is how much every single person here hates me and is plotting against me. It's so loud it hurts." Then goes on with conversation as normal. At the same mutual friend's house, about a year later, a few of us sit around the fire, sharing a blunt, while everyone else is inside the garage. My friend suddenly interrupts to ask us if we've ever fantasized about murdering all of our friends and loved ones just for fun. When no one responded, he laughed and said, "Just kidding, me neither." Our friendship has pretty much deteriorated due to safety reasons on my end, following a couple of very close calls. But I still think about him and send healing and loving energy his way every day.